Book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, we are taking a break from our study in Paul's epistle to Timothy. And as every summer, well, it's only my second summer here, but as I'm starting the tradition now, every summer I like to do a summer series. And this morning we're going to be looking at the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, by show of hands, who here has ever heard a sermon series through the book of Ecclesiastes? Not nearly enough. I'm impressed by those of you who have been through this. It is a very, at times, difficult book, a very dark book, sometimes speaking, but the book of Ecclesiastes offers us some incredible practical insights into how are we to view this life and how are we to live. Well, what is the importance? And when you think about the book of Ecclesiastes, a lot of the Jews at the time when the canon was being formed actually pushed back on this being included in the canon because it was too libertious. It had too much liberties. It wasn't dark enough. It wasn't restrictive enough. And we today read this and think, well, this is a really seemingly dark book. This doesn't, are we supposed to be rejoicing in this book? Are we supposed to be mourning in this book? Should I be throwing on sackcloth and ashes as I come into church as we're studying through the book of Ecclesiastes? But what Ecclesiastes offers us is what mankind continues to try and offer through the philosophical inquiry. If you think about philosophy, philosophy is trying to answer questions to life by hypothesizing, by going to the branch of metaphysics, by trying to come up with answers to life's biggest questions. What's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life? I've often heard people say, it wasn't until I found my true purpose that I realized what I was put on earth to do. But what is that true purpose? How do I know if I'm in that vein of what I'm supposed to do, what God has intended me for me to do? You know, a lot of times and you see these people trying to help you with your bank account and help you grow your followers and help you do all this other stuff. But my biggest question is, to what end? You go through all of college, you go through all of high school, you get to that job, you work your way up the corporate ladder. To what end? Like, at what point in time is it enough? At what point in time are we done seeking after these things that we think is going to satisfy us? Well, what is the point of everything? And there's times in which in our lives we get to this point where it doesn't matter your pedigree, it doesn't matter the number in your bank account, it doesn't matter what possessions you have. It doesn't matter how great your marriage is. It doesn't matter how great your parenting relationship is. All of that stuff, ultimately, at one point in time, you will come to the end of yourself, throw up your hands and figure out and ask yourself, what? Why? How then shall I now live? What is the point? I don't understand this. God, help me understand this. And what the writer of Ecclesiastes, what he does is he points us to an understanding of how we should live on this earth. Now, if you're not familiar with the book of Ecclesiastes, this is a book in the biblical genre known as wisdom. And so when we interpret this literary genre, we have to understand and put on the correct hermeneutical tools in order to best understand what this is saying, what this is meaning. Now, the writer is Solomon. This is the third king of Israel, the son of David, who is, if you will, came out of the marriage between Bathsheba and David. Solomon is the third king, and in 1 Kings we see an interaction between Solomon and Yahweh, where Yahweh comes to Solomon and says, Solomon, what is it that you would request of me? And Solomon retorts and answers and says, Yahweh, I want to understand, to have discernment between good and evil. I wish for wisdom. And so God responds to Solomon saying, not only will I give you wisdom, I will give you riches. I will give you prosperity. I will give you growth. And growth and prosperity he had. Wisdom he had. But Solomon is not the best moral example to follow. He had over 700 pagan wives, which was not okay within where they were supposed to marry. They were not supposed to marry outside of the Israel kingdom. And he had, on top of 700 wives, 300 concubines. Some of you men were thinking, my goodness, I cannot imagine that. Not in a good way. Can you imagine over 1,200, 1,100 women vying for your attention, wanting your ear. That's a lot. But now Solomon, he's not just the writer of Ecclesiastes, and his pursuits, this book of Ecclesiastes, is showing us a understanding of how we should view this life. Now, when we look at the genre of wisdom literature, we have 4 distinct books in the Old Testament that deals with this. We have the book of Proverbs, which deals with the truths and realities of life. We have the book of Job, which is how we as righteous people need to understand that we as righteous people will still suffer. And then the book of Ecclesiastes is talking about finding the true meaning of life, and Song of Solomon talks about the importance of marital intimacy. So as we're looking at the book of Ecclesiastes, I want us to understand 4 items that we need to think about before we jump into this. As we read through the book of Ecclesiastes, we need to listen to what is being read here. We need to look at what is implied. We need to think about what does this mean for us, and then we need to reflect on what it says and how we as Christians can and should develop personal character. And like I said, this book needs to be understood as Christian philosophy. The difference between this as Christian philosophy and some of these other philosophical books is that this actually gives you answers. Any other philosophy books espouses potentials or theories, or they try and come up with answers, but at the end of it, it's like, we could be wrong. But what Solomon is doing here, he's saying, this is how things are. This is the state of affairs. This is how you need to view this life. This is how you need to view this world. And so when we look at this, we're going to see the book of Ecclesiastes. We can come up with 3 major headings in which we're going to be hitting on different portions of this throughout the 12 chapters we have here. The first heading is that we're going to look at is the human pursuit of knowledge. We're going to look at that this morning. Then we're going to look at the human pursuit of pleasure, or what we would call as hedonism. And then we're going to then look at the human pursuit of possessions. Now, as I've been developing this sermon, I've also written a complete booklet that we're going to hopefully be printing in the next several weeks that will accompany this study to help you in your week in and week out to be able to look through, reflect, and study this book a little more deeply. So, the final thing I want to highlight here as we're looking at the book of Ecclesiastes to set us up for what is it that we can expect over the next several weeks here is that there is a motif or a theme here that you will not see the name of God, especially the name Yahweh, the covenant name for God. You won't see the name of God until the very end of the last chapter of the last verse, and the name that is used there is Elohim. Now, we only want to look at this because this book is merely trying to show us life under the sun, life on this earth. And so what we need to understand is that as Solomon is outlining this, he's not discounting life in heaven, life above the sun, but he wishes to write this in such a manner, in such a way that we as Christians today can learn through wisdom of Solomon, his mistakes, his failures, his pursuits, so that we can see this is the way things are. And as we read through this, I think many of you are going to reflect and be like, this is true. I've been there. I've established this. I've felt this. I've experienced this. And so the book of Ecclesiastes is a somber but beautiful book. I have fallen in love, as I do every book of the Bible, the more I take time in studying this, to just really see how this can edify your soul. You're going through hard times, go to the book of Ecclesiastes. You're having relationship problems, go to the book of Ecclesiastes. You've just lost your job, go to the book of Ecclesiastes. I mean, you can go to any book of the Bible, but there is something about the book of Ecclesiastes that as you read this, you're like, he gets it. He gets it. And let me tell you this, Solomon 100% does. So we're going to read through the entire first chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes, and we're going to break this down into some understandable points with some titles here. So if you have your Bibles, follow along with me. Ecclesiastes starting in chapter 1, verse 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What advantage does man have in all his labor, in which he labors under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth stands forever. Also the sun rises and the sun sets, and hastening to its place it rises there again. Going toward the south, then circling toward the north, the wind goes circling along. And on its circular courses the wind returns. All the rivers go into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers go, there they continually go. All things are wearisome. Man is not able to speak of it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one might say, see, it is new? Already it has been for ages which were before us. There is no remembrance of earlier things, and also of the later things which will be, there will be for them no remembrance, among those who will come later still. I, the preacher, have been given king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I have gave my heart to seek and explore by wisdom concerning all that has been done under heaven. It is a grievous endeavor which God has given to the sons of men, with which to occupy themselves. I have seen all the works which have been done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and striving after the wind. What is bent cannot be straightened, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I spoke within my heart, saying, behold, I have magnified and increased wisdom more than all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has seen an abundance of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and simple-minded folly. I came to know that this is also striving after the wind. Because in much wisdom there is much vexation, and whoever increases knowledge increases pain. Let us pray. Father, speak to us this morning through your word. Your word is truth, God. Will you please illuminate this text to our hearts and our minds and our conscience? God, may we listen and read this and study this, God, and allow this to help formulate our mind to view this world, to view these situations, to view these circumstances, God, not through finding meaning here and now, but to find meaning only through you. Be with us this morning. We ask all these things in your name. Amen. So the series that we're looking at in the book of Ecclesiastes is the source of meaning. What is the source of meaning? Why do I exist? Why do you exist? So let's look at the first section here. My first title is The Nothingness of Everything. Welcome to Five Bridges Church, everyone. Thank you for visiting with us as we are learning about the nothingness of everything. Well, look at verse 1 here. Verse 1 says, the words of the preacher. Now here's an interesting item. Solomon is a king of Israel, but he is taking on a role now of qualifying himself as a preacher. And he is the son of David, king in Jerusalem. We get that. So when we think about Solomon, most of the times we personify Solomon as wisdom, and you would be correct in that. Solomon here is now taking a different role. He is still the king, but he is now also the preacher. He's the preacher. And he identifies himself as the spokesperson for Yahweh. The Hebrew word here for preacher is koheleth, and this is indicating that this is a speaker taking an authoritative stance in an assembly. And the author is identifying him, stating that this is not merely Solomon's opinion, but because he has divine wisdom that has been imparted to him, you need to listen to what I have to say. You need to reason with yourself as to how does this apply to me. Look at what he says here in verse 2 then. We've identified himself. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. This word vanity is repeated 5 times and is used throughout the entirety of this book. This word havel in the Hebrew means meaningless, emptiness, that there's no real substance to anything. It's vanity. And what is he qualifying as vanity? All is vanity. Now, what's interesting about this, too, is that as Solomon is out the gate giving us an understanding of, he's giving us the conclusion to his pursuits. He's raising this question, and he's giving us the answer. Unlike a lot of philosophers today who will consistently try and wax eloquence in your ears, making it seem like he's saying something, but in actuality, there's nothing being said. Solomon out the gate saying, hey, by the way, just to let you know, everything is vanity. Got it? Okay, now that we've covered that, let's move on. That's what he's doing here. He's introducing us to this pursuit of life. Now, the repetitious nature here of him using this word multiple times is reminiscent in Isaiah chapter 6, where we see holy, holy, holy. This takes this word to the superlative degree, meaning it is the ultimateness of nothingness. What is vanity? Everything is vanity. Well, what about, no, that's vanity. Well, that's vanity. He is saying that everything, all things, is vanity. Now, what does he mean all is vanity? Well, if you're asking that question, he gives us a little bit more of a detail here. Everything is vanity, and then he moves into verse 3. What advantage does man have in all his labor in which he labors under the sun? This sound is vanity. All is vanity. He is expressing here that under the sun, underline that phrase if you like to underline this. That phrase, under the sun, is used 29 times through this entire book. And what this means is under the sun, meaning toil, what we do, everything under the sun, everything in this earth. He's not talking about the things above the sun in the heavenly realm, in the spiritual realm. He's talking in the physicality, in the physical realm, here on this earth. So what he is saying here is that everything following in the rest of this book is practical application and a practical guide for how you as a Christian need to view your life, how you need to understand this world, how you need to understand this earth, everything under the sun. So what is the all is vanity? Everything under the sun. That includes the planets. That includes everything that is receiving any form of light from the sun. Just in case someone says, well, he's not talking about this. If it's under the sun, this applies. He is asking, what advantage, what gain does anyone have? He's talking about physical items, not spiritual items. He's talking about earthly endeavors, earthly pursuits, everything. He's talking about the everyday grind of life. He's talking about the waking up, the working, the bill paying, the relationship building, the lawn mowing aspects, the chore aspects of life. And he raises the question, what advantage does a person profit in all of their work, in all of their life that they do under the sun? And he raises that question, and we're going to look at the answer. So point number 2, we're going to look at the finite nature of our earthly existence. This is going to be in verses 4 to 7. Now, this one here, verse 4, this is a stark reality for us that we need to understand. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth stands forever. What he's saying here is people come and fade out of existence. They come and then they go. For a period of time, I was extremely interested in Ancestry.com. I spent over a year and a half researching my ancestors, calling to distant relatives to find out information. And the thing that I realized is I was only able to get to a point in which after this point, it was my great-grandma, my great-great-uncle, there we go, I got it there. No one knew anything past that. Everyone in the past a certain point, was completely forgotten. Unless it was written down, or unless there was photos, or unless there was something else, no one knew. But now, I like to, as I was researching this, put myself in my great-great-grandpa's shoes. What was he going through? What was so important to him at that time? Did he know that eventually no one would remember him? And what's interesting here is that Solomon is pointing us like the world continues to move on. A generation comes and a generation goes. Eventually, you and I will be dust. No one will remember your name. No one will remember the spreadsheets that you did. No one will be remembering the beautiful lines you've put on your lawn. What Solomon is saying here is that the earth continues on. People come and go. The earth continues on. Humans rarely comprehend, nor do they really reflect and think about, I'm eventually going to be forgotten. You know, the thing I hear a lot of, what legacy are you leaving? A few generations from now, that legacy that you are so bent on creating for yourself, no one will remember that. Everything that you are working so hard at, no one will remember. What advantage is that of yours? Everything that you're dedicating your life right here, right now. 3 generations from now, they're not going to remember your name. Oh yeah, that was a great, I don't know, he owned a business or something. I don't know. They're going to move on with their life. But the earth is going to continue on. These generations come and go. The earth stands forever. For my 10th wedding anniversary, my wife and I love the Arizona high desert. I don't know what it is about the desert. I love it. especially the Arizona desert. Not this time of year down in Phoenix, but I'm talking in the northern portions of Arizona. I'd bought 10 acres for a really good discount, and I built a shipping container that was off-grid, and I placed it there. When I flew my family and I out there, we drove around the historic Route 66, and there's all these tiny towns. We pull in, and it was something like you step back in time. 1950s, I'm talking, it is weird, but so cool. And I talked to one of the owners at this town, and I said, man, tell me about the history of this city. Man, this was booming, man. Back in the 50s and the 60s, everyone came here. All the movie stars came here. They visited here. Everything. Man, this place was popping. He didn't use that word. That's my vernacular I threw in with that. And I'm like, well, what happened? Well, that era of movies moved on. The celebrities moved on, and they kind of moved their way more west. And so now you have almost like this stamp of time in the middle of nowhere, Arizona, with an inhabitant of maybe 50 to 100 people, in which it's a distant memory. It's a facade of once was. It's a shadow. And how many of us have these items and these things in which you look back and you realize, man, I remember in middle school that was so important to me. I remember in high school, or I remember wherever it was so important, but then life moves on. That's what the writer is saying here. Life moves on. It continues. Now look at verse 5. Also the sun rises and the sun sets, and hastening to its place, it rises there again. Going toward the south, then circling around to the north. The wind goes circling along, and on its circular courses the wind returns. All the rivers go into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers go, they continually go. Earth is like a big machine. It's like a crank. Have you ever gone to those parks, you put the penny in, and you select the thing that you want to get stamped on the penny, and you're sitting there cranking it along, and sometimes you feel like you're getting more of a workout than you realize as you're cranking that penny machine? That's the earth. It's this big machine that's going, the winds are circling. They come back, they circle. We're fading out. New generation comes, new generation goes, new generation comes. Everything's cranking. Nothing stops. I think the reality of this is when you go to a funeral of a beloved loved one, and as you're convoying to the funeral home or you're going to the graveyard, you look and there's the guy weed whacking, mowing the yard, kids playing in the sprinklers, and you're watching all them, you're thinking, you guys don't get it. My grandma just died. Why would you not stop and honor her? Now down south, the convoy goes by and you're supposed to pull over. And how many of us get annoyed? Like, oh my goodness, really? Another one? Man, this is a long convoy. This guy must have been really popular. I'm sitting here for over a minute and a half, and then you keep going on. No one cares. No one cares. The only person that cares is you. And eventually you yourself will find yourself in the back of that hearse. Welcome to Five Bridges, where we love the Lord and we are so joyous with Him. But this is what we have to understand. The sun rises and the sun sets. Cranking. It hastens to its place, and there it goes again. Same thing. These are the constants. The wind is going all around, and it keeps coming back. Verse 7, the river's going to the sea, but how's the sea not getting full? How's it not overflowing? Evaporation. It evaporates, goes back into the air, rains down again, flows into the sea, evaporates, goes back into the air, comes back in. Everything is going on its own course. The only thing that fades away is you and I. Eventually, this earth is working towards destruction. We know that to be true. But what Solomon is saying here is the earth is just chugging along. When you and I die, it's not as if all of a sudden this chugging along. Oh, let's take a moment of silence. Pluto, Saturn, Ethan has just passed. It doesn't care. It's going to continue on. Those bills are going to continue to accumulate after you're dead. So parents, if you've racked up a large amount of debt, it's going to your family. Kids, if you're thinking, I might have an inheritance, you probably have a good amount of debt coming your way. Because everything's just going on. Life doesn't stop for you. Life doesn't honor you. None of that matters. The earth is just chugging along. Everything. The earth doesn't stop spinning on its ecliptic. It does not, the tides don't stop the ebb and the flow when one of us goes. when something bad happens, it doesn't take the world by surprise. And what we need to understand is that we need to reflect on our own mortality. We fade from existence, and none of us like to think that way. We all like to live, and we all like to think that we're going to somehow magically live forever, but we know the inevitable fact is that we will all die. We don't know when that time will be, but we know we will die. And guess what? Everything will continue to go on as normal. Everyone will continue to move on. You yourself will fade into the distant memory. The only people that care about you as much as you do is you. Your family members care about you, but not nearly as much as you care about yourself. And so this is the nothingness of everything. Everything is just going round and around. It's a crank. It's chugging along. It's moving. Now we're going to look at verses 8 through 11, the garage sale of life. That paints a beautiful picture, does it not? I love garage sales. How many of you have ever been to a garage sale? I remember Friday night, my mom and I, we'd get out the newspaper and we'd be checking out where are the neighborhoods to go to. Where are we going to go hit up? How many of you like to go to antique stores? I love antique stores. I love going there to see. It's like a discovery. What am I going to find here? It's like a treasure hunt, like I'm Nick Cage in National Treasure, looking to see if I can find Benjamin Franklin's eyeglasses to lead me to another life or something else. We like to go and explore these things, but at some point in time, those items being sold at the garage sale, those items at the antique store, someone had worked very hard at acquiring those things. That's what I mean by the garage sale of life. Look at verses 8 through 11. All things are wearisome. Man is not able to speak of it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. That which has been done is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So I'm going to hit pause here, and let's unpack 8 and 9 here. What he is saying here is that this is now talking about the pursuit of knowledge. The writer is saying here, all things are wearisome. Man cannot speak of it. So the eye is not satisfied with seeing. So this means that there's something innate in each of us where we can't get enough of something. And particularly as we're about to look into, this is talking about pursuing knowledge, pursuing education. And let me caveat something here real quick saying, is that everything that I'm talking about, if you do value education, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. If you do like working hard, that is not a bad thing. We as Christians are supposed to work hard. But what you need to understand is, what is the purpose, what is the point, and the why. Why are you learning this? Why are you working so hard? Why are you saving so much? This puts life in perspective. This puts situations in perspective. What does one think of? What does one process? The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. Think about education. We call it degrees of education, right? You get your undergrad degree, then you get your graduate degree, then you get your postgraduate degree. We have degrees and higher levels of education. But how many of us have gone through and we get our undergrad and we majored in financial economics, but you have absolutely nothing in your job to do? You're driving a forklift for a living. You study to be an accountant, but now you own your own landscape business where your primary job is weed whacking and mowing the yard and doing hardscaping with retaining walls. We focus so much on what is my major, and then you pour everything into that major only for you to get a job that has nothing to do with that major. And then you get into that job and you start working, you're investing so much into that job, and you're like, I want to move up my way of the corporate ladder. I want to continue because my eye is not satisfied with seeing what I'm accumulating. My ear is not satisfied with hearing enough. I can't hear and see enough. I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to grow. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I must ask the question, to what end? To what end? What is all that learning for? Look at verse 9. That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one might say, see, it is new? Already it has been for ages which were before us. I love these two verses here. It's because oftentimes I hear today, especially in our world, it's never been as bad in America today as it has been in yesteryear. It's way worse now than it's ever been before. or living in the Gulf Coast, we've got a bad hurricane season. This was the worst storm system. I don't think anyone's ever been through this before. Well, today in 1944, in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, there was a horrific storms of tornadoes, going from 3 of these 7 tornadoes that touched down, spanning a gigantic landscape, reached up to the F4 of the Fujita scale, demolished homes, demolished areas. Over 150 people were killed, and over 843 were injured. Do you think that at that point in time, they thought nothing has been as bad as this? No one has experienced this the way that we have experienced this. As you look and reflect in time, each time has items that stand out in which we think and reflect, this is all that there's been. There has never been something in the past like this. No one has gone through this before. No, Israel has not experienced this before with Hamas and everything else. My goodness, this is it. How about you hit pause, go back to World War II, reflect on the Holocaust, and then think, is it really the same? Is this anything new? Have we seen or arrived at any new information that has dictated that this is the precipice of newness? No one has ever seen this. No one has ever thought of this. Everything, even when you get to science and you get to technology, science is not creating something. Science is discovering stuff that is already there. It's inventing and accumulating technology on items that have already existed. We just haven't discovered it yet. There's nothing new. It's always been there. It's always been there. It just says as we continue to grow and to learn, we adapt, we learn, we grow. But what he is saying here is that everything that which has been done is that which will be done. So what we're going through right now, guess what? Crank, 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 crank. It's going to resurface again. The heresies that I saw the church fighting in the 3rd century, I see them rising up again. Where people say, the church, oh, the church is going south. The church has always been getting attacked. There's always that tendency to go to liberalism. That's the natural tendency of man, is for evilness and wickedness. And so what the writer is saying here is there's nothing that is being seen here that hasn't already been happened. And if you don't know that, you just need to study history. That's why I believe church history is very important for us as Christians to know and to understand and to study. So he says that which has been done is that which will be done. So if you want to know what the future holds, look to the past. What happened back then? Most likely is going to happen in the future. So what does he say then? What's his conclusion? So there's nothing new under the sun. Then he switches his point here. There is no remembrance of earlier things. And also of the later things which will be, there will be for them no remembrance among those who will come later still. This is the garage sale of life. If you want to buy land, let me tell you how to buy land. Wait for the person to die who worked everything in his being to buy that land, and when he gives it to his kids after his death, the kids don't want that land, they want the money. They want to go out and buy things. They want that jet ski. They want that whatever it is, the new Cybertruck. So you want to buy land, here's an investment tip. Wait for the individual to die and then wait for it to go to the kids. The kids will offload it. Now, if you think too about the garage sale, when you die and you leave all of that to your kids, or you leave all of that to whomever is inheriting that, there's a high chance that what you find important to you, they will not find important, and they will merely either sell it at the garage sale, put it on the curb, or take it to the dump. So my question then is it worth it? Is your endeavors worth pouring all of your aspect of your life and your being into attaining this stuff? Now, we can enjoy this stuff, but if my whole identity is this stuff, and then I die, and then it goes to my kids or the grandkids or extended relatives, they're going to sell those Beanie Babies you're holding on to. They're not going to get value, by the way. Yes, I fell for that too as a kid. Those Pogs, you're not going to find value in those things. I mean, think about it. Like, what is so important to you? When you die, is that item as important to your distant family or even your immediate family as it is to you? If I came into your house and I looked around and I'm trying to figure out what is important to you, Maybe it's me walking on your couch with dirty shoes. Ugh. Guess what? When you die, your kids, they're going to let their dogs and their cats all over it. Doesn't matter. So what's the point? I'm not saying the point is don't care about anything. The point is put in perspective, what is your focus? What is the focus of our life? I think, too, this helps us in our jobs. So many of us, specifically men, women too, you wrap your identity in your job. This job is everything to me. And yes, in one way, it provides for your family. 100%. That is what you as a man is called to do, to provide and to protect your family. But does the job dictate your family life? Do you allow that job to bleed into your family? If you had a choice between going to your daughter's wedding or pulling an all-nighter for time and a half pay and a potential promotion, which would you choose? That's a good one too. But think about it. Your identity is not in your job. Your job is what you do. It is not who you are. And even to speak about in ministry, I see a lot of pastors, their identity is in being a pastor. Where if you catch me out at Walmart, you better call me Pastor Ethan. You better remind me, and let me remind you, it's Pastor Ethan, okay? No. I can let my job overtake my family. I can let my focus of my pursuits of earthly endeavors, my business, whatever it is, overtake everything else that is of more importance. The job is important. It provides for the family, but at the same time, I cannot wrap myself in my identity in what I do. I need to ask the question, who am I? Where is my identity to be found? Because as we think about this, you can just really start circling the drain here. You're like, well, what is the point? The point isn't finding purpose and meaning in these things. Solomon is giving us the outline. I'm just out the gate giving you a heads up, readers. Everything that you think is important to you, guess what? It isn't as important as you might think. So then that helps you tier and scale and categorize when making decisions what I should do, what I shouldn't do, what I should prioritize, and what I shouldn't prioritize. There's nothing more that is going to destroy your life and destroy your family than having the wrong priorities in your life, than having the wrong focus in your life. And what Solomon is saying is, if you're focusing on items that is found under the sun, if this is your focus, I'm here to tell you that's not it. I'm here to tell you that's not the source of meaning. I'm here to tell you that's not the point of life. Because as we have looked here, all that stuff that you find important is going to get put on the curb. My parents, they had a basement. My wife's parents too. I don't know what it is about basements. Praise God, in Florida, we don't have basements. We have attics. So if you're down south, think attics. Go up in your attic. Or no, better yet, hit pause, back up. What do you see along the stretch of 98 besides Dollar Generals? Storage. Storage containers. You see a building going up, about 90% chance it's either a car wash or storage. What is in that storage? Well, why do you need that? On top of these storages, you also have boat parking and RV parking. Why did you spend $75,000 on a boat to which you're not going to use? Why? You want to know that it's there? Great, it's there. That's a waste of time and money. You have all that stuff in the storage container. Have you even visited it? Do you even know what's in there? Have you even touched it in the last year? What's the point? You're wasting over $170 a month. Now, if it's climate controlled, even more. For what? Guess what? You're making more work when you die for your family to have to come and clean that thing out. Or it's going to get auctioned off to someone who doesn't even know you exist. And guess what? You're going to be sitting there thinking at your deathbed, oh, I hope that stuff goes to a good family and I hope they use it well. And doesn't matter, you're dead. You're gone. You're not worried about that anymore? And though this is what he's talking about. This is the garage sale of life. And I think when you view your things this way, you are very open-handed with what God has given to you. Hey, Ethan, I need to borrow this. Done. Now, granted, you're going to be smart about it. If I have a history of wrecking your truck every time I borrow it, you're probably not going to lend me your truck. But think about it when it comes to you, get ready, your finances. Well, when I get that $70,000 in my savings account, I might start being generous after that. All right, you die after you get that $70K, now what? Well, if only I can just make it to retirement. Once I'm retired, then I'm going to start serving the church. Well, what does that look like? If you're not serving the church now, what makes you think you're going to serve the church when you're retired? Or the opposite thing, I've done my time. I'm retired. I've got my vacation home. I've got my third vacation home. I've got this. So I've done my time. It's time for this young generation to come up. It's their time to go. It's their time to do. You're focusing on the wrong things. If that's your viewpoint, I pray God calls you home because you're worthless. You're useless. If you have breath in your lungs, it means that God's got a purpose for you. I mean, he's got something for you to do. He needs you to do what he wants you to do. Now, granted, let me caveat this. He doesn't need anything. But the fact that he's allowing us to be the gospel proclaimers, to be the heralds of the truth, and it's not just in what we say, but it's also in how we live. It's how we view our life. It's how we view the situation. But when you get such a myopic view of your world, and you get such an inflated view of yourself, you become an unusable person. And I don't want to be unusable. Because I'm a firm believer, if you're sitting in here right now, I don't care what your health condition is. I don't know how long any of us. You might have a health diagnosis that has you only a year more left to live. And you might be thinking, man, I wish it was like I didn't know this. I wish I could be like everyone else in this room who has a future. You don't know that. We had 3 individuals drowned the other night here at the beach. Got here the first day of vacation, went out to swim, drowned. Do you think that was in their plan? Hey, let's go on vacation so we can go die. It wasn't. None of us knows the day or the hour. We don't know when we're going to get called home. So how about we focus on the right here and the right now for God's glory? That's what he's doing here. He's putting everything in perspective. So now we're going to move into the final. We just moved past the garage sale of life. Now we're going to look at the self-critique of learning. Yes, you heard that right. The self-critique of learning. Verse 12, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. Solomon saying, hey, this is who I've been. And now verse 13, he says, and I gave my heart to seek and explore by wisdom concerning all that has been done under heaven. It is a grievous endeavor which God has given to the sons of men, which to occupy themselves. What he's saying here is, I set out, I, the preacher, I'm identifying myself, I, the preacher, the son of David, the king of Israel and Jerusalem. I made it my point and my passion and my focus to explore by wisdom. I want to learn all that I can learn. Everything that's been done under heaven. And as I was contemplating and consulting all these sages and scribes and all these wisdom people, all these philosophers, all these historians, I was learning from all of them. And this wasn't like a haphazard. This was a full commitment that Solomon wanted to pursue to the best of his ability. I want to learn as much as I can. What is his conclusion here? It is a grievous endeavor which God has given to the sons of men. The sons of men is referring to the sons of Adam, meaning mankind, with which to occupy themselves, meaning it is a folly. It's a distraction. It's important and it's helpful, but it ultimately can become a distraction if you get your priorities mixed up. And he says, I have seen all the works which have been done under the sun, and behold, what does he conclude? All is vanity and striving after the wind. And I love that illustration here, striving after the wind. Imagine right now if we were to go to the beach, I'm going to say, guys, I want you to watch me real quick. I'm going to catch the wind. And you just see me running down the beach with a bag trying to catch the wind and harness the wind. You can't. It's a futile effort. In fact, you're going to look ridiculous running down the beach trying to capture the wind, to stop the wind. It blows wherever it wants, as we've already seen here in 6 and 7. all over the place. You can't catch it. It's futile. It's vanity. And he's equating that with this vanity of trying to be wise and trying to be the biggest brain in the room and think that you've acquired all of this knowledge. And what does he say? He says in verse 15, what is bent cannot be straightened, and what is lacking cannot be counted. What he's saying here is that when we believe that we've achieved something as a human in wisdom, you cannot come up with a vase of all the stuff we still don't yet know. The smartest person that's ever lived still does not know everything that could ever be known. In fact, the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. The more you think you acquire in your wisdom, the more you realize how unwise you really are. But the arrogant person is like, I know it all. And I find it hilarious. We have these things called subject matter experts. As I was going through my survival training, I kid you not, as we were learning about edible plants, and we were brought out by this incredible subject matter expert guide, and he was showing us edible mushrooms. He's showing us which ones are poisonous, which ones are bad, which ones are good. And I quote, this is what he said verbatim, and it stuck with me like glue. Hundreds of mushroom experts die every year. When me and my training team heard this, we thought, what? Hundreds of mushroom experts die every year, so then they're not an expert. And so we raised it. We said, well, what qualifies someone to be an expert? And the guy looked a little confused. He's like, shut up, Airman Jago. This is what the answer is. Hundreds die every year, so be careful which mushrooms you choose. So I have made it a point to never eat a mushroom in my life. And I will live longer than all of you who do eat mushrooms. But think about that. An expert, what makes a person an expert? A human title, a human degree. Dr. Ethan Jago. You're in a plane. We need a doctor. I'm a doctor. What a doctor of? Theology and apologetics. You're no help. It's a title. We have to understand that the more you grow in knowledge, the more you should realize how much you actually don't know, how much you don't understand. And so that's when earthly philosophy kicks in and, well, probabilistically, we could have the quantum mechanical theory about this and that's like, okay, the Bible's answering this. And everything that I've seen in human philosophy, and that was one of my majors, is they steal from the Bible. They steal from the books of wisdom, and they repackage it and they resell it, making it seem like it's something rather than it's not. But this is where the wisdom comes from. So he's saying, you cannot understand everything that you lack. And what it's saying too, what is bent cannot be straightened. There's no do-overs. You can't undo something that has already been done. There's no respawns. There's no mulligans. You cannot begin to assume and pile up everything you lack. It's innumerable. If you were to ask me, Ethan, what do you know? It'd be a very short list. And if you ask me, Ethan, what don't you know how to do? It'd be a very long list to which you would be bored. This is what he's saying here. So it helps you view your life. And then it says too, I spoke within my heart, behold, I have magnified and increased wisdom more than all who are over Jerusalem before me. My heart has seen an abundance of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and simple-minded folly. I came to know that this is also striving after the wind. The more you think you know and learn demonstrates how little you actually know. And what I love here is in verse 17, he uses this word heart 3 times. He uses this in verse 13, he uses this in verse 16, he uses this in verse 17 to show that this was a heart-driven pursuit. That this wasn't something like, I want to learn how to work my car, I'm going to watch one YouTube video and figure out like, oh, I got it, I'm a mechanic now. No, this was a pursuit. We don't know how long of a time he spent in this pursuit, but long enough and have gained a lot of information to know that this is not it. Educational pursuit is not it. And then he says here, verse 18, because in much wisdom there is much vexation, and whoever increases knowledge increases pain. What he is saying here is that the more you learn, the more you get angry and frustrated, because it frustrates you. How many of you do not raise your hand? How many of you know what a good, healthy diet is? You could probably articulate this, you could probably state it, you could probably talk about it, but how many of you actually follow exactly what you need to do to eat? How many of you want to lose weight? And how many of you are thinking, I want to be able to go to the beach and not be embarrassed with myself? One, accept how God has created you. Two, you can have physical bodies, and you should be training yourself physically because that helps you in the spiritual instance. But here's the issue, though, is we think we know what to do, but we never do it. You know, you have that honey-do list, or that's why we have the word procrastination, because you know what you should do, but you don't do it. Why don't I do it? I don't know. I know that I should be doing this, but I don't want to do this. As I see the grass in my backyard getting longer, I know that if I was to do it today, it will be way easier than if I wait 3 more weeks and it's ridiculously high and I got to spend 6 more hours mowing it, but I don't want to do it today. So guess what? I'm going to have to pay the price on the back end. Either way, you will have to pay that price. Now what he's saying here is, in much wisdom, the more you learn, the more you get frustrated with yourself. And the more you increase your knowledge, you increase your pain. Meaning that despite all the knowledge one could ever attain in one's life, compiling all of the data and information, it still does not, and will it not, provide meaning? It won't. Why will all of this earthly knowledge and wisdom not give me meaning? Because it is a part of and derived from under the sun. And what do we know about the status and condition of the earth? It is fallen. It is sinful. So anything of meaning cannot come from this earth. I cannot find happiness. I cannot find meaning through wisdom or what we're going to continue to look at in Ecclesiastes. We're not going to find that if it's under the sun. I'm here to tell you, it will not provide meaning. But then why do we continue to do it? Why do we continue to lie to ourselves? Why do we continue to strive after the wind? That is what we do when we focus on everything on the here and now and not on what is of true purpose and not what actually gives meaning. What will not leave you void at the end of your life. Here's what I want to end with here. Finite creatures looking at finite information cannot understand nor develop an infinite purpose. Finite creatures with a finite understanding and information cannot understand nor develop an infinite purpose. We must have something outside of this system. We must have something outside of under the sun, and that can only come from above the sun. And that's what we are going to continue to look at in the book of Ecclesiastes. So, if you're ready to just give it up today and walk out into the ocean and let it go, I'm here to tell you that's not the answer. This should not cause depression for Christians. If anything, this should encourage you. If anything, this should motivate you. If anything, this should help put items in perspective. So when trauma comes your way, hardships come your way, bad diagnoses come your way, disruptions in your life come your way, ailments, medical problems come your way, you can view this and be like, I get it. Because guess what? It's about it's the system. But our purpose is not found here and now. Our happiness and meaning is not found here and now. And in that, I rejoice. I rejoice. Because the more I study this, the more it helps me view this world around me. The more I study the book of Ecclesiastes, the more wisdom I get to understand and interpret the times. The more I don't have to fearmonger who's going to get elected next. The more I don't have to fearmonger about the end of the world. The more I don't have to worry about a zombie apocalypse or an EMP or anything else. Doesn't matter, because I already know that which has been is what will be, and which will be done will have been done. And the more I know, it doesn't matter how much I know. It doesn't matter how much I know, because at the end of the day, I only need to know one thing. Where is my identity, and what is my true purpose, and what is the true meaning of my life? Those are the items that we need to inquire. That is what we are going to be continuing to study in the book of Ecclesiastes. So, I hope you are happy right now. This is a macabre kind of book, but I promise as you continue to study, this will begin to shape and give you a true biblical Christian worldview and give you something of good Christian philosophy, solid Christian philosophy. This is the inspired, inerrant Word of God. Solomon was writing this under the promptings of the Holy Spirit. So guess what? We have divine philosophy given to a human creature to show and demonstrate your human pursuits. Here to spoil it alert for you guys, it's vanity and it's striving after the wind. So give up your bank accounts, sell your cars, get rid of everything. No, that's not what I'm saying here. He's going to get us to the point as we continue this study in the book of Ecclesiastes. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for this stark slap in the face reality of what is truly important in our life. God, I pray that this will encourage and edify the believers in this room, Father, that they will see and reorient themselves to the true purpose that we as Christians need to focus on. It's not the here and now. And God, I pray that for any of us in here that are still just idolizing and creating an idol out of these earthly things, out of relationships and jobs and valuables and everything else, God, that we will recognize that we have created an idol, and the only thing that we need to worship that is worthy of our worship is you, Father. Help us in our weakness. Help us in our understanding. Be with us this week, Father. We love you in your name.